Hello, and welcome to the On My Mind podcast. I am your host, Remy Keene, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited for this episode. Today, we're doing something a little different. I interview and just have a conversation with my wife, Ashley, as we talk about how to navigate just life. Honestly, the way I started was talking about a time where you had to think before you spoke, and then we get into a good conversation. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you after the conversation. Before we get into this, hold on. Let me ask you, are you subscribed to the podcast? If you're not, take a moment, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can stay tuned for more conversations like this and a whole bunch of awesome tips on how to have a better life by changing just minor things. So, what are you waiting for? Okay, let's get into it. Hello, Ashley. Welcome to the On My Mind podcast. Your first time on the podcast. How do you feel?
Pretty good so far.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you. I'm glad to be able to kind of talk to you and just share a little bit about maybe your life and what you've gone through. Everybody hears me talk about you a lot, but now they get to hear from you directly. So let's go ahead and just start a conversation. First of all, if you could name a time where you had to exercise thinking before speaking, what was the time like that?
Oh gosh, there's probably lots of moments. It's hard to say. You kind of have to gauge the moment and the person. Like there are certain people where I know I can't say certain things to, or I can't be blunt with them. And I kind of have to dance around with what I may say because it may be offensive.
So why
Or
do you do that?
to not make them upset.
Not make them
Um,
upset?
yeah, because you still want to keep that relationship with them. You still want to be like a friend, or you still want to be their, mentor, or, it may be a family member. So you kind of want to, obviously with family, you can't really just get rid of them. So you kind of have to keep the peace in some ways. So I would say those are some of the reasons why I may think before I speak.
Sure.
Kind of like that filter before you just decide to let it word vomit, in a sense.
How do you know what to filter out?
Again, it's kind of gauging the person and
Sure.
gauging the situation, because I may be able to say something to you and not to somebody else. Like
Okay.
I might be able to be blunt with you and be honest with you, but I can't do that the same way I would maybe somebody else.
So
Not you.
how do you, sorry, not to cut you
No, you're
off,
good.
but how do you determine who you can do that with and who you can't?
Well, some of it's relationship building, because you get to know that person and you get to know their personality, and you might be able to get to know how they may react in certain situations. And then some of it is just you've got a new person that you want to meet, and you want to make sure that you aren't coming off in a bad way to them. So you might want to be a little bit easier and, in a way, kind of, again, gauge who they are. So it might give you some insight about how they react to something,
Sure.
or they may not react to it.
Right. Yeah. What are like the goals you have in mind whenever you determine whether or not a person is ready to receive what you're about to say? What are like the goals behind why you judge them that way? Like, do you do it because you know they're easily offended, or do you do it because you want to protect them, or like what's your motives behind it, if you could put it?
I guess I would kind of say both as far as those two examples, because like I may have a coworker that, if I want to talk about God with them, they may not take it as well as the next person.
Sure.
Like I can think of a couple right now that one of them just kind of plays it off and, acts like he doesn't have any interest in it. But the other one I can talk to about it. And even though he doesn't necessarily believe in God, neither of them actually believe really in God. They believe in another source or another being, but one of them plays it off and tries to kind of like just let it go, whereas the
Right.
other one might actually at least listen to me, even though I know that he may still tell me no in the end, and he knows he's going to tell me no in the end, but I still, might be able to bring it up to him, whereas he might take it, whereas the other guy, he's just like, no, I don't want to hear it, and just
Sure.
in a playful way, he'll just be like, nope, I'm good, thanks, bye, whereas the other one will at least listen to me, whether or not he would actually make something of it, I guess.
That makes sense. So I guess my question then would be, in situations that they would be offended, do you just not talk to them at all?
I almost want to say no,
No. Okay.
because, I mean, if it's talking about God, then I definitely want them to hear it in some way, and I might say it differently. Like in those situations where I could ask the one guy straight up, are you going to go to church with me this weekend? And he'll be like, no. Whereas the other guy, I say, can you go to church with me this weekend? And he'll be like, no, I've got something else going on. No, that's not my cup of tea. Something like that. If it's a different situation, I would probably, I don't know, I guess it depends on what it is.
Sure.
Like, if I know that it's going to hurt them, then I probably wouldn't say anything.
Right. Yeah.
Because one, it may not be my business in the first place. If it's a rumor or something, I'm not going to tell them that, hey, this person said something about you. And unless they straight up ask me, and then again, it's judging, can I be blunt with them? Or do I have to be like, well, somebody did say something, but I wouldn't worry about it. Or, maybe they're just having a bad day or whatever the case is.
Sure. So, what if you get into that situation and you thought it was okay, and you thought it was okay to talk about, but then you realize, nope, they aren't wanting to talk about this particularly? Is there an easier way to see your way out? And I don't think you're an expert, but I do think you have a lot of experience, just interacting with people, because everyone does. But the thing is like, maybe someone will be able to relate more with what you can say versus what I can say about the situation. So when
Right.
you go get into a situation, when you go into that, what, like, if you realize, no, what basically do you do in that situation?
If I can see that they're getting upset, I might, I don't want to say play it off, but just be like, well, you shouldn't worry about it that much. Or maybe I was wrong. I might say something like that to kind of be like, maybe what I said isn't complete truth. Or maybe I heard them wrong. Maybe I wasn't saying it correctly. And then in other certain circumstances, I might say, well, am I making sense? Like if I'm trying to explain something, say at work or whatever, does it make sense? Do I need to, or do I need to say it differently? Like some people can get kind of easily irritated in
Sure.
certain situations. And so I feel like I can read people pretty well, at least when it comes to that, I can tell somebody's getting frustrated, or maybe they just don't understand and they could be getting frustrated, or they're just trying to think it through. Because I know I do that. If I don't understand something, I'm trying to think it through, trying to understand what they're saying, make sure that it makes sense in my head. And that's like another case with another coworker. She and I kind of think similarly in some ways like that. She's the same way, where she's like, does it make sense? Do I need to explain it some, different way? And I'm like, no. I'm just trying to think it out, trying to, visualize it in my head.
Well, it's
Whereas
kind of
other
cool
people,
that she asks that. Like, the
yeah,
fact that she even asked that is kind of brave, because normally a lot of times we just think in the back of our mind, oh, should I have said that, or maybe I shouldn't have, and then
Well,
we
and
worry
yeah.
about it.
Oh yeah, and I'm like that too. Like, oh, did I say something wrong? But then there's other people where she or I could explain something to somebody and they get super frustrated because they don't understand.
Right.
And then they get to the point where they don't want to talk about it or they don't want to understand it. And so then it's like, okay, well, we kind of need to think about this and we kind of need to understand it so that everybody's on the same page. But
Sure.
I mean, I guess that's just a work situation, friend situation, or like a church. I mean, I guess it could be just about anywhere that you have certain situations or people like that that you have to, I guess, do the
Sure.
same thing as.
So that leads to my next question. When was a time that you can remember that you had a direct quarrel with a friend, and how did you handle that situation in love instead of out of anger or spite or whatever? And like give me three things basically on how someone else could maybe replicate acting in love instead of acting in just whatever negative emotion you might feel.
Well, the two that I can think of over the years, it actually kind of was out of like a little bit of, I don't want to say anger, but just upset
Sure.
with the other person. And then going back and saying, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe we can figure this out. Maybe we can talk it out. Definitely with the first situation I'm thinking of, because I knew in a way that I was wrong. Maybe whatever I said or how I acted. And it actually got to the point where it was like, okay, well, they were like, well, I can't invite you to this, certain thing because if we can't get along, I can't have you there. And I'm like, okay, well, can we talk about this? And so it actually ended up, in a good situation where we made up. The other situation was a little more recent, so we're still kind of trying to work that out. I don't know if there's really been any other like significant ones, but like that most recent one, it was just kind of like, I'm upset because we're not getting this figured out, and it's a continual thing, and it's on both
Sure.
sides. Both sides are trying to figure it out and
Right.
make it work.
So what do you think could make it work easier?
More communication.
Communication. If communication happened, how would that help the situation?
Well, first, understanding on both sides. And sometimes in situations kind of like this one, it's one party doesn't understand where the other party is coming from. So maybe the one that doesn't understand thinks that everything is okay, whereas the other one says, well, maybe. And they're trying to understand that party as, maybe there's something on their side that is causing some of the disconnect. And so that's where the upset is at. It's like,
Sure.
well, understanding that you may have things on your side that are causing the disconnect, but we're also trying to let you know there's a disconnect. And then the other party is like, well, we always thought everything was fine. What's wrong? So
Right.
it's just kind of working that out again. So
Honestly, I feel like maybe you and I go through that, as husband and wife. Sometimes I'll just think, well, she knows that. But I also realize that maybe I need to verbalize it a little more, or I need to do things differently, because you obviously aren't feeling that way because of how you respond. And it's like, I just think the whole time that, no, she's cool with that. She understands. And then I run into a situation where, oh, maybe she didn't. And yeah, so I'm totally right there with you, where I can understand sometimes you only know one side of the situation and you don't know the other side. And the other side could think they're totally like, we're good, everything's chill, and then all of a sudden, boom, something just triggers you to move towards the like a fight, instead of trying to just talk it out and everything. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing for sure. Like it's
Yeah.
something that we should all think about maybe a little more, is that um, when we go into a situation, we don't know their side of the story. And if we don't give them the benefit of the doubt and, use empathy and use actual, like, believe that they're innocent until you realize they're in the wrong, approach them with I feel statements. I feel like that's the best way to do it, because it's like, if I approach you and I say, you're attacking me, you immediately get defensive and put up a wall. But if
Mm-hmm.
I approach you and I say, well, have been feeling like you're treating me differently. What's going on with that? And I like want to get your side of the story. That would probably be a little more accepted by you, because you understand that we're in a relationship, we're working together to make the relationship good, but I'm feeling differently than you want me to feel. Because I guarantee you don't want me to feel that way. But it's like, well, I had no idea till right now that you were feeling that way. So let me, hear this person out. If when you go into the situation you talk about how you feel instead of what they're doing, then basically, well, maybe their question might end up being, well, what am I doing that makes you feel that way? And
Right.
then they're open to receive that. And honestly, that's the one of the best ways to communicate it. It's like, man, whenever we had that conversation earlier, I felt like you were attacking me, and maybe you weren't, but I want to get your side of the story. Or is that what
Mm-hmm.
you were doing? Or what, can we talk about it? Something like that is going to be a lot more easier taken than, hey, why'd you attack me earlier? No, don't say it like that. Say, hey, I
Right.
really felt like you have something you want to say, so let's talk. If
Yeah.
you approach it like that, that's more of like being a good steward in the